This episode begins with Lois waking up to the sight of Clark's picture hanging on the board, but it feels different this time. She knows his secret that he is Superman. On the other hand, Jimmy is excited for the day and goes to wake up Clark, even when he told him not to wake him up with an update every day, but he couldn't find him. His phone rings and a video was sent to him, a weird YouTuber who is ready to expose secrets. Jimmy calls Clark to see where he went, and Clark tells him that he has big news for him, which is telling Lois about his feelings for her. Jimmy reminds him of the camping trip, but Clark hangs up to save the day from an almost crashing train. Lois calls Jimmy to ask him if he can do her a favor. The favor is to know Clark's whereabouts at specific times that she provides for him. Of course, her suspension grew after she figured it out. Jimmy arrives to the office, meets the other team of reporters, and they take him with them as their photographer. Meanwhile, several criminals come out of a van after planning their attack on a shop, but get attacked instead by a mysterious yet powerful being. Back to Lois at the office, trying to figure out how to make Clark tell her that he is Superman, but he interrupts her thoughts and helps her moving the heavy box around, and asks her if she can help him with his article about the weird things happening in the city. Then shows her an investigation board of the criminals who were in the bank that day. Then shows her a scanner where every move in the city is reported on it, just as news are announced on the scanner. He makes up another excuse that includes a bagel again and runs away to save the day. But Lois takes the scanner and leaves. Jimmy is stuck with the other reporter who just took him to cover some news out of the office, trying to send SOS messages to Lois and Clark, but the reporter keeps teasing him about being left out of his group, but he insists that he is not. However, it's been a while, ever since Lois came into the picture. As they have arrived to the stadium, the reporter hands him his phone to take videos. Back to Lois running all around the city where Superman keeps saving people, and she hears every movement on the scanner, and finally catches Superman to keep him under her sight, and puts handcuffs on his wrist, but gets interrupted by the criminals arriving at the scene. And now Superman has to fight with Lois stuck by his side. The criminals start to throw objects at him, but he dodges them and fights back. However, he keeps getting flashbacks from his past. One of the criminals' weapon fails all of a sudden and begs for help. On the other hand, Jimmy figures out that the mysterious man who kept messing around with him was his fellow co-worker, Steve, and starts to assure Jimmy again that he is left behind. But Jimmy refuses to accept the idea and goes to meet his friend. Back to Superman and Lois trying to interview the criminal, but the criminal tells them that Superman is a bad guy who keeps attacking them and flees away. Superman leaves Lois behind because it's too dangerous, and she calls him out by his real name, but he still leaves. As Superman arrives to the scene where the last criminal is still trying to ruin the city, several other criminals appear at the scene and freezes the other one to be able to destroy Superman with their robots, but Superman figures it out that the other group with the robots are the ones responsible for the kidnapping of people, but they are too strong and fight Superman with all their powers, then destroys a pole of a bridge, and now Superman is trying to save the citizens and succeeds. Clark flies back to where he left Lois, and as soon as she sees him hurt, she asks him about it, and he dodges the question with a random answer as usual. But apparently, Lois had enough and starts to demand real answers and no more lies. She confronts Clark, jumps off the tower, and he immediately saves her. She is angry and disappointed that he kept secrets from her, and tells him that whatever was going to happen between them is now over. Jimmy tries to reach Clark and Lois, but still no hope, and goes to the camp all alone. Lois tries to reach Jimmy on his phone to apologize for standing him up and leaving him behind, but she can't get a hold of him, blames it all on Clark, and tells him that she is heading to the camp. But as soon as she opens the apartment door, Clark is right there to tell her that he can't get a hold of Jimmy as well. Even though he flew all the way to the camp, he is not there, and he asks her for help to find him since she is the best investigator he knows. She agrees, but assures him that it's not for his sake, but for Jimmy's sake. Meanwhile, Jimmy is being held captive in a weird place, and Lois and Clark arrive to the forest where Jimmy was last seen. She tracks his footsteps, and Clark asks her, how is she able to do that? And she explains that her dad taught her how to survive in such wild places, but she is still upset with him. And as Clark was trying to apologize, they get interrupted by a strange place surrounded by gates. Lois and Clark enter, and they find Jimmy's phone, apparently. He also entered the same place, but got kidnapped by Bigfoot. They call it like that, but it's a gorilla in my opinion. And a robot too. As soon as they get ready to open his brain, Jimmy thanks them for their care. At least someone cares, but the gorilla got emotional and asked him if he wants to talk about. Clark and Lois see army trucks and skeletons apparently. The army was invaded by these people, or vice versa, but failed. Lois asks Clark what he hasn't told Jimmy about his secret, but they are interrupted by several monsters and attacks them as they run away. the gorilla shows Jimmy around the place, and he is fascinated by what he is witnessing, and asks if someone saw his phone to be able to capture everything to allow the world to witness it as well. But he is still angry at his two friends, Clark and Lois, as the gorilla tries to explain and assure to the robot that it has been a long time since they had someone here to talk to and have a conversation with, and assures her it won't be like last time, and starts to narrate what happened back then, 22 years ago. To be specific, apparently, they worked with a scientist who betrayed them and destroyed everything. The gorilla and the robot start to fight and argue, and Jimmy decides to wander around. Back to Clark and Lois being targeted by serious and dangerous robots. Clark tries to fight them and flies away but falls down. Apparently his powers are weaker behind these gates. As soon as they enter another gate, Lois accidentally activates a weapon, and it destroys the robots, but it targeted them as well, and Clark saves Lois from being hit. Meanwhile, Jimmy is asking the gorilla what the gate is and how it works. He explains that they have been looking for a solution to stabilize it, but it's totally safe. At the same time, an intruder alert goes out, and all of them are at the main door. Clark, Lois, Jimmy, the gorilla, and the robot. Jimmy tells everyone to calm down and tells them that they are not enemies, but rather his friends, and leaves them alone to talk about it together. Clark apologizes, and as he is about to reveal that he is Superman, Jimmy finishes off his sentence that he had known ever since college. Lois is now angry that even Jimmy knew and didn't tell her. The gorilla warned them through the speakers that they are being chased by robots. They hurry inside, and the gorilla unleashes several mini-monsters to fight them. As soon as they arrive to the lab, since Clark is the only one who can stand there without getting hurt, the gorilla asks him to help them and tells him all the instructions. The gorilla opens the black hole to pull the robots. They were about to be pulled in too, but Clark saves all of them, and the gate is stabilized now. The robot warns Clark of a dangerous man and that he should take care of him. I really enjoyed these two episodes and how they spotted the light for two episodes on friendship and how a friend can feel left out of a group. The first episode and the reveal of Clark's secret to Lois was intense since he was getting ready to tell her about his feelings. As for the second episode, the whole lesson being taught to Clark and Lois to never leave their friend behind was a really nice touch-up. This brings us to the end of today's video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get more videos like this one. Your support helps us grow. And tell me, what do you think of these two episodes? Do you think now that Lois and Jimmy know Clark's secret, will their friendship be any different? What do you think about the last villain that the robot warned Clark from? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. And if you're watching till now, thank you. I'll see you in another video soon.